Hey guys, this is Miss Ewing, and this is a new learning video for distributive property. We've talked about it a few times in class, but this will be an additional tool for you to use if you're still confused. Distributive property is something that we've been doing probably since about 4th grade. It just looks a little bit different. Now that we're in 7th grade, we're going to go ahead and start throwing some variables and exponents into the game. Here's a great example. 2 times the quantity of x plus 3. Now I like to think about this like a UPS driver. The UPS driver is the number 2 on the outside, and he has to make deliveries to everybody on the inside. So our first step, I'm going to box each of my terms just so I can see clearly what I'm multiplying. Then I'm going to take the outside number, the number 2, and multiply it by my first term, which would give us the problem 2 times x. And then I'm also going to take the 2 and multiply it by our next term. Excuse me. 2 times a positive 3. If I go back and solve the first problem, 2 times x, we don't know what x is, so all we can do is rewrite it as a separate term. Moving to the next multiplication, I know that 2 times 3 gives me 6. And since I have already boxed my terms, we know that that invisible sign between them is a plus, making my new distributed problem 2x plus 6. Let's look at another one. 3 times negative x plus 5. If I follow those same steps and just separate my terms, it's easier to see that I'm multiplying 3 times a negative x, and then my second step, 3 times a positive 5. Now I can go back and start to solve my problems. Looking at the different signs here, I know that this is a good guy moving out of town, which makes me not happy, so my answer is negative. And because I don't know what x is, all I can do is write it down. If I move to the next step, both of my digits are positive, so I simply multiply. 3 times 5 gives me a 15. And because I previously boxed my terms, I know that the invisible sign that I'm going to bring straight down is addition. This makes my new expression negative 3x plus 15. Let's try one that's a little bit different. What if I put 2x on the outside times x plus 4? It's the same exact process. I'm going to box my terms and deliver my 2x to everybody on the inside. Now I have 2x times x, and my second step gives me 2x times a positive 4. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, and this is some of the new stuff that you're seeing in 7th grade. I don't have, in this first section, I don't have 2 constants, or 2 coefficients, sorry, so the 2 is just going to come straight down. Now, I know that if I multiply an x times an x, that will give me x squared. If I move to the second piece, I take care of my numbers first, my digits. 2 times 4 is 8, and the x comes with it. I know because I've already boxed my terms that that invisible operation sign is a plus, making my new expression 2x squared plus 8x. That's a little confusing, so let's do one more. On the outside, let's go with a negative 4y times 3 plus y plus 2y. Make it a little bit longer and challenging. First step, like we've been doing, let's box our terms. We have 3, positive y, and a positive 2y. If I go back and I step by step distribute, my first multiplication is negative 4y times 3. My second distribute is negative 4y times a positive y. And now I've added that third term, still have to distribute, and I end up with negative 4y times a positive 2y. Going back to solve, in my blue section, I have one negative and a positive. We know that this is a bad guy moving into town, which is definitely not something we want. Take care of your numbers or your digits. 4 times 3 is 12, and the y will stay with it. Then we move to our next set, our orange. Again, we have a bad guy moving into town, so I'm not happy about that. 4 is the only digit, so we bring that down. And here's that tricky part. The y times y gives us y squared. And then our final step, again, we have bad guy moving into town, so we're not excited about that. Now I have two digits. 4 times 2 gives me an 8, but I also have this y times y, and we know that that gives us a y squared. We know that the invisible sign between all of these terms, we're technically adding them, we're combining them. So if I rewrite this, I get negative 12y plus negative 4y squared plus negative 8y squared. And I'm noticing something here that was in our last learning video. I can actually combine these terms because they are alike. Negative 12y will stay the same, and I know that if I'm adding a negative 4 plus a negative 8, that it makes my negative number bigger, so that will end up as negative 12y squared. If I wanted to rewrite this as an expression that looks similar, negative 12y minus 12y squared. Oftentimes in algebra, you're not going to see a plus negative right next to each other. They simply write that as a negative sign. I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you take it step by step, I know that you'll be able to get this. If you have any questions, please make sure that you're raising your hand in class. And if you're doing this at home, make sure that you shoot me an email message on Canvas or bring your questions to class on the next day.